What's up, everyone? It's me, your boy Ryan Flowers, aka Clutch Sports Talk, and welcome to another episode of NFL Matchups. As usual, we're going to talk about what we learned about some games and some teams and some issues from Week 10 of National Football League. Then we're going to jump into my favorite segment of the show, Real or Nah, and then we're going to look at our Week 11 matchups. I'm going to give you guys my previews and predictions, and then we're going to close out this episode with my fantasy football impacts for the week. So, you guys are in the right spot for NFL action. Sit back and relax and enjoy the show. This is NFL Matchups with me, Ryan Flowers. Let's go.
We're going to be here all day, baby. I like this kind of party. I like this kind of party, baby.
Welcome back to the episode. If you guys haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Grid Network YouTube channel. We really appreciate every subscription matters as we continue to grow our page. Okay, let's talk about a little bit about what we learned this past weekend. I want to start with the Chicago Bears. It's not looking good. They're coming off of a defeat to the New England Patriots at home, where they only mustered 3 points that whole entire game. A lot of blame is to be made on either sides of the ball, defense, offense, but mainly the quarterback and the coaching staff there in Chicago. Now, Drake May outperformed Caleb Williams. Now, Caleb Williams is 0-2 this year against other rookie quarterbacks. He lost earlier this year on a Hail Mary, granted, to Jaden Daniels, and then he got outperformed this past Sunday by Drake May and the New England Patriots. Caleb Williams continues to struggle, especially after a bye week. That's pretty remarkable. This offense has not scored, I think, a touchdown since their game against the Washington Commanders, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. As they continue to play, there's no connection. There's no chemistry between the star-studded players that they have, between DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, even Keenan Allen, right? And don't even get me started on Rome Odunze, the rookie, right? So they have the pieces, but offensively, they're just struggling. I think the play calling is pretty weak. And I think, Matt Eberflus is definitely on the hot seat for sure. And then when you look at the quarterback play, anytime I watch Caleb Williams and I'm actually comparing him to other rookie quarterbacks, to me, he doesn't pass the eye test. And I get it. He's still a rookie. But when you watch Drake May, you watch Jaden Daniels, there are plays that are made from those players in the game where you're like, you know what? They actually look like they can play in the National Football League. Caleb Williams, to me, still looks like he's playing in college at USC or Oklahoma, where he's just kind of running around, ad-libbing stuff as he goes, and that's not going to be able to get it done. And the Bears continue to struggle. Their playoff chances are definitely dwindling as we speak. Any other loss, I feel like they're done. I mean, they're already in the most competitive division in all of National Football League. And you lose a game to the Patriots, a team that no one really respects that much. But they do play with heart. They do play with some grit. But Drake May definitely is a better quarterback as a rookie right now. And Caleb Williams. Now, I get it. He's had some glimpses. He had some moments here. But I'm definitely the Chicago Bears, to me, and their fan base is waking up this morning, and they're like, well, like, what are we doing? Like, why didn't we just keep Justin Fields in if we're going to continue to lose, especially the way Justin Fields was playing down the stretch last year? You ended up letting him go. You draft Caleb Williams. You figure he's going to be a plug-and-play type of quarterback, and it's just not working out. And I don't think a lot of it, too, is not all on him. I think it's coaching as well. And I definitely believe Matt Eberflus will probably be the next coach fired if they continue to lose. But as far as what we learned about the Bears, I just think that they're not ready yet. They're still an inept team. They still have a lot of development and growing to do, and it begins with the quarterback play as well. All right, moving right along. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and maybe they are legit. Listen, really good win against the Washington Commanders on the road. Russell Wilson continues to perform and produce a little bit there. A little up and down this past game, but there were some major key plays made down the stretch that helped attribute them to winning that football game in a tough environment against a Commanders team that was ready and willing to win that game at home in front of their faithful fans there. Now, I will say this, though. Russell Wilson moving forward is going to be the quarterback. I don't think there's a debate in that now. I believe he's 3-0 still as a starter with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's still connecting with guys like George Pickens. They added Mike Williams in the draft, in the trade arena there, which I'll talk about here in just a second. But honestly, this offense is a lot better. I think it's more consistent, even though there are some ups and downs, just like any other offense in the National Football League for the most part. You're going to find your grooves. You're going to find your rhythm, and they tend to do that. And I think Russell Wilson is definitely brought some new life to this offense as well. I mean, he's Mr. Unlimited, right? So, he's still undefeated as a Pittsburgh Steeler. I know Steeler fans are going crazy. But I will say this, though. You got to give a lot of credit to Mike Tomlin as well. I don't think he gets a lot of credit for being a really, really outstanding coach in the National Football League. What he's been able to go through the last couple of years, especially those years where they were kind of wandering in the desert after, Big Ben retired, and he still was able to win games, be in contention for the playoffs, and even in contention for the AFC North. And now you feel like he's got a quarterback. Now, granted, Russell Wilson is he's an elder statesman here now, but still he has a veteran quarterback with a proven pedigree who has a lot to prove, because honestly, the last time we really considered Russell Wilson a top 10 quarterback was probably a couple years ago when he was still in Seattle, right? We saw what happened to him in Denver. Didn't work out there. He's come to Pittsburgh now. It looks like he's taking control of that offense. Granted, Justin Fields did what he needed to do. But overall, I think too, the moves that they made at the trade deadline, adding a guy like Mike Williams, who came up with a clutch catch towards the end, late in that game to help seal that victory for them. And then the guy that they traded from the Green Bay Packers, Preston Smith, who had a key sack, I believe, in that game late on Jaden Daniels to help preserve the win as well. So making acquisitions is something that they've been able to do successfully this year. And I don't think that's a plus for them, honestly. And the moves that they made with Mike Williams and Preston Smith, they're very minor. But in the grand scheme of things, these guys help what they're doing there with their whole philosophy. You don't always have to go out and get a big time name like how the Jets got Devontae Adams, and look what's happening to them. They got smacked by the Arizona Cardinals still, right? So it doesn't matter. You get guys that fit what you're doing for your team. So with that said, Pittsburgh Steelers are definitely legit. I think this win on the road against a hostile team in the Commanders in a hostile environment definitely solidifies my opinion on them. Are they one of the better teams in the AFC? Well, you know what? We're going to continue. We're going to see a little bit more from them, because they still have matchups against guys in their teams in their division, and they still got to go up against the Ravens as well, too. So we will see in the future. But right now, I believe they are legit. All right, finally, let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals. This is one of my favorite teams to watch in the National Football League. I've been on record saying that even way back in August, September, when I was doing my previews and predictions for the divisions, I didn't think they would be as good as they are right now. Now, granted, I don't think they're like the best team in the NFC, but they're one of the best teams in the NFC West. I don't know. Last week I had a real or not take saying that they weren't quite ready to win the NFC West, or it was a far reality that they can't. This team actually can. The way their defense is playing, it's much improved. Kyler Murray is playing out of this world at an MVP candidate level. Granted, I know Lamar Jackson's running away with this thing right now, but guys like Kyler Murray, man, he's making plays down the field. The rapport he's establishing with Marvin Harrison Jr., but again, the defense, man, the defense is playing lights out. And what they did to the Jets this past weekend was just basically a shellacking. I love that word, shellacking, but they handled the Jets. They throttled them, right? Listen, and offensively against the Jets, they were able to do whatever they wanted to do. Kyler Murray put up over 126 yards, 1 touchdown in the air and 2 on the ground. And just he's playing phenomenal football. And I'm looking at my notes here. Listen, on their first 5 drives, they could not be stopped. They cannot be stopped. They ended up getting 28 first downs and 406 yards in total yardage within that game. And against a defense which we thought was legitimate. Apparently, the Jets defense is not good anymore. I don't know what happened to them, but they were once a vaunted defense. Now they're a mere shell of themselves. But definitely, the NFC West is a very, very peculiar situation. Right? You got the Niners, big win against the Buccaneers. Then you still have the Rams that are still in contention. You got the Cardinals still right there. This thing can go either way. Seattle, maybe on the outside looking in, but they do play each other tough within this particular division. So I can see Seattle maybe splitting with somebody here. But this was once a division not that long ago where you're like, the NFC West, it's going to be the Niners to win. Not so fast. The Cardinals are here to stay, and they're saying, you know what, we have what it takes to win this division, and maybe make some noise in the playoffs, because Kyler Murray is a nightmare matchup for defenses because of his ability to make plays off script. You don't know where he's going, and he's a threat running the ball. He's a mini Lamar Jackson, right? Probably a lot more accurate than Lamar, but but still, he's a guy that you have to keep account for when you're on the defense. And then James Conner is playing really well too. Their red zone offense is really good, but their defense, again, I think is what's most important about this unit, is that within the last 2 weeks, they've been holding teams pretty efficiently, I would say. And as long as the Jets are concerned, it's pretty much a wrap for them. I don't see them doing much here, but this is more so about what the Arizona Cardinals did versus than what the Jets couldn't do against them, because you really got to see the microcosm of one organization that's been, up and down a little bit, but they don't make these decisions that the Jets are making. And the Cardinals are going to be pretty much an adult type of organization. And that's what I really like about them, honestly. But they're definitely exciting to watch. Where you look at the Jets, it's a car accident on the side of the road that you have to kind of look, because what's happening here? They're just falling apart at the seams everywhere, from the quarterback to the defense, everywhere you go. But when you look at the Cardinals, they only have room to improve. So I'm telling you right now, I'm going to put everyone on notice. You better look out for the Cardinals, because they can beat a couple teams, and maybe sneak up on a couple teams and make a deep run in the playoffs. All right, here's my favorite segment of NFL matchups. We're going to do a little bit of real or nah. And we're going to start with the Minnesota Vikings. Real or nah? Do the Vikings need to be worried about Sam Darnold? Let's take a look at it. Now, listen, Sam Darnold is still a pretty good quarterback, right? It's not, his overall pass rating is still legitimate. I believe it's like 94.5. His completion rate is still at a very high rate too. I believe it's like 72, 74%. But the real issue here is the turnovers. Now, I know they've just won their last two, but he has not looked impressive at all. After starting the year 5-0, Sam Darnold was like an MVP candidate, and then they went on this little slide. But partly it's because of the play, and more particularly the turnovers. Now, this is a playoff team, no doubt in my mind. The defense is primed. They have talent on the offensive side of things, but Sam Darnold is starting to revert back to the Sam Darnold that we knew back in the Jets, back in Carolina. So that's what the Vikings do not want to see. So the question remains, do they need to really worry about him? I would say this is they need to worry about him, because turnovers will only attribute to losses, especially when you're playing really good teams late in January into February when you're trying to make a run to the Super Bowl. So do the Vikings need to be worried about Sam Darnold? Absolutely, yes. This is a real. Moving right along, my second real or nah. The best team in the AFC is the Kansas City Chiefs. Real or nah? Let's take a look at it. Now, I get it. This is going to cause a lot of stir, probably in the comment section, or just bring up a lot of provocative thoughts here. When you think about the Chiefs and the way they've been playing, and don't get me wrong, they have not been playing great football. They barely got by the Denver Broncos this past weekend, and I believe their margin for wins point-wise is about 6.5 points. It's not a big margin. And you got the Baltimore Ravens who look unstoppable on offense. And I'll talk about them in just a second because they're relevant as well as the Bills. But I'll say this about the Chiefs. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes have proven to us time and time again that you can't count them out. And I get it. They're not playing really good football at this time, right? One thing I will say, though, Patrick Mahomes is starting to pick up his stride a little bit, especially in the passing game, right? Travis Kelce is becoming more and more involved in the offense. And DeAndre Hopkins is going to continue to get more comfortable within this offense as well. And they're going to get guys healthy. Isaiah Pacheco is probably a couple weeks away from being back on this football club, right? And Kareem Hunt is playing solid football too. And you mix those two guys together, that's going to be a very formidable running attack against any team, right? The Chiefs defense is still arguably one of the better defenses in the National Football League today, and they make plays. They get after it as well. And when you look at the Baltimore Ravens, their biggest weakness is their secondary, their defense as well too. And then you look at the Bills, no run game. They can't stop the run very well as either, and the Chiefs can run the ball still. Outside of those two other teams, I can't think of any other AFC team. Maybe the Texans, but the Texans just lost another one to the Lions, another big-time matchup that they lost. Now, they're probably better with Nico Collins back in the lineup, but he's not here right now. So the argument can be made that the Chiefs are still the best team, although they're not playing the best football, but somehow, some way, they still find a way to win football games, and I think that's what gets overlooked a lot. And I get it. You have teams in the past that have won a lot of close games in the regular season, and then come playoff time, they can't win those close games. But the Chiefs have proven time and time again, especially last season, that they can not only win those games in the regular season, they can win those games, close games in the playoffs, and even in the Super Bowl, win down multiple points, double-digit in points. So, real or nah, the Kansas City Chiefs are the best team in the AFC. I'm going to say real. Okay, it wouldn't be an NFL matchups episode if we didn't do a little healthy Cowboys bashing. And in my final real or nah, Mike McCarthy will be the next head coach fired in the National Football League. Let's talk about it. Now, Mike McCarthy coming off of another bad loss at home against the Philadelphia Eagles, a divisional rival. It was not pretty, not by any stretch of the imaginary. So will he be the next head coach fired? I mean, listen, a lot of it isn't all on him, okay? I'll say that. This roster was not constructed to win at all. The only person that believed that this team could probably win is Jerry Jones. That's it. I don't think you can ask Mike McCarthy and he can look you in the eye and actually tell you, you know what, we can win a Super Bowl with this roster. Hell no. Stevie Wonder can see that this Dallas Cowboys roster, the way it's currently constructed, cannot even win a division, yet alone a conference, yet alone a Super Bowl at the end of the season. Now, they've looked bad at home. I honestly, I don't think they even won a home game yet. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? I think all their wins have been on the road. And then when they do play at home, they get smoked. Dak Prescott is out. Michael Parsons missed a lot of time. DeMarcus Lawrence missed a lot of time, and a lot of other key injuries. The running back room is probably one of the worst running back rooms in all National Football League. And the wide receiving room is as thin as a sheet of paper, right? Without CeeDee Lamb, they're even more cooked than what they are. Now, is all of that Mike McCarthy's fault? Absolutely not. So I say all that to say this. Will he be the next head coach fired? Nah, I don't believe so. Why? Because I believe Matt Eberflus is in a worse situation than this. Why? Because he was given the tools, he was given a roster to go out and win now, right? The Chicago Bears did everything in their might to make sure that this roster was going to be sufficient enough for Caleb Williams to take over and do something in his first season as a rookie. They haven't lived up to the hype. So therefore, I think Mike McCarthy is safe until the end of the season. Then I believe he will be let go by Jerry Jones, and he'll be in the search for another Cowboys head coach. So to circle back, I will say this again. Real or nah, Mike McCarthy will be the next head coach fired. I'm going to say nah because I believe Matt Eberflus will probably be fired in the next couple of weeks. All right, let's take a look at my preview and predictions for Week 11 here on NFL Matchups. First off, we got a Thursday night tilt between the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a huge game for the NFC East and also the NFC. Right now, the Eagles, I believe, are number one in NFC East, and they're number two behind the Lions in the NFC overall. The Eagles are coming off of a drubbing over the Dallas Cowboys, and the Commanders a narrow loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. It's kind of exciting matchup. Like finally, Thursday night matchups haven't been that great. I mean, last week we got a great one, and I think this one will be a good one too. Commanders again. I think they've shown that they can hang in these games, right? And this is a big test for them, right? They failed last week against Pittsburgh, another playoff contending team. You got another shot at it. This time it's on the road. Can the young quarterback in Jaden Daniels go on the road and get the win over Philadelphia? I don't think he can. I think the Eagles are just going to be a little bit too much, especially with Saquon Barkley running the football. And I still think that's an area of concern for the Washington Commanders. So I'm going to go with the Eagles to win this game and improve their standing in the NFC East and remain right there, number two, I believe, in the NFC conference overall. All right, now we got the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Detroit Lions. Lions coming off of a thrilling come-from-behind win, a double-digit win on the road, Sunday night, prime time. Jake Bates with the two clutch kicks to help tie the game and then win the game ultimately. And then Jacksonville, a really good performance, solid performance, a game in which I thought they should have won. I really thought they should have won that game. They fell short. Mac Jones got the start. Trevor Lawrence was out. I'm not sure of what the timeline is for Trevor Lawrence, if he's going to give it a go. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section if he is. But the Lions, to me, I thought they were going to lose that game Sunday night. I did not expect them to win that game. But one thing it showed how resolved they are. This is a team that was down double digits. Quarterback threw 5 interceptions in a game against a formidable opponent in Houston on the road. Things are not going well for you, but you still managed to win that football game. That just shows a lot of the toughness and mental stamina that this team has. And I feel like they have arrived. Like I just wouldn't never give them full credit until they actually won something. But after that game, I walked away thinking the Lions are for real, man. Like, of course they can be beaten. I mean, any team can be beaten on any given Sunday, but the likelihood of them reaching the Super Bowl, I would say, man, it's highly likely, right? So, but to close out this one, I would say the Lions are going to win this game at home. Okay, all right, let's hop on over to the Chicago Bears at home taking on the Green Bay Packers. Listen, they just fired their offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. He's out, which someone had to go. The offensive output has not been what they expected it to be. They had some glimpses earlier, right? I know the game in London, I kind of maybe it might have been a little bit of fool's goal, right? But they haven't scored a touchdown, right? And Caleb Williams is getting worse and worse each and every week. He's 0-2 against other rookie quarterbacks. He's lost to Jaden Daniels and he's lost to Drake May head to head. And then you got Green Bay coming in, right? Now, I will say this. Anytime you get a big change like that, sometimes it could be a blessing and a curse, right? Obviously, in the case of last week, the Saints fired their head coach and the interim coach kind of brought some juice to the building, but I just don't think that it's going to be enough. I think the Packers are still better than the Bears overall. Now, Jordan Love hasn't really been lighting the world on fire himself. And playing solid, right? But still turning the ball over, not making the big plays when he needs to make them. But I still think that they're the better team overall. I like the Packers in this matchup. You got the Las Vegas Raiders now taking on the Miami Dolphins, heading to Miami, actually. Dolphins coming off of a really good Monday night win over the Rams. The Raiders coming off of a bye week. Listen, it's the same problem for the Raiders. No quarterback. And I don't think your coach is that good, to be honest with you. Now, they've let go their offensive coordinator, Luke Getsky, or Gotsky, whatever his name is. He's gone. I don't think it's going to change. The personnel is still the same. You don't really have a running game. You don't have a quarterback. You don't really have a number one threat on the outside at wide receiver. So yeah, I just don't see it. Your best player is probably on defense and Max Crosby. And who knows how long he's going to stick around, after this year. I know he says he wants to be there, but come on. Guys change their mind. And what do you expect these guys to say? No, I want to leave. No, he's going to say, yeah, I want to be here for life, right? But we all know how that goes. And you got Miami Tua. He didn't shock the world with his performance against the Rams. It was a good performance. I know they're getting guys back in the fold, such as Jalen Tyreek Hill, who was questionable going into that game. Jonnu Smith had a pretty good game. So but I think the biggest trend for me that I've seen with them is that they're running the ball more effectively, because they're trying to make sure that they're keeping Tua upright. And that defense, man, they're getting after it, man. That defensive line, that front seven, Calais Campbell, who would have thought, man, like, I don't know how old he is. He's like 55 years old, but he's still getting after it, still providing some value for this team. I like the Dolphins. I mean, long story short, I like the Dolphins in this particular game. They should win this one easily against the Raiders. All right, let's jump back over now. Let's look at the Rams and the New England Patriots. This is a very interesting one. I think this is going to be a closer game. Honestly, I don't know what the spread on it is, but I will say this: the Rams' offense looked disappointing to me. There were some moments there in that game where I felt like they need to attack the field more, down the field, I would say. I think they got Cooper Kupp going later in that game when they probably should get him going early. Like, I don't watch a lot of Rams games, but what I can remember watching their games a lot is that they're really successful when Cooper Kupp is going. I get it. Puka Nacua is the guy, but I feel like volume for volume, Cooper Kupp has to be the guy Matthew Stafford has to get the ball to off the rip. And then you get other guys going like Puka, but overall, you look at New England coming off a really good win on the road. This time they're at home. But Drake May has shown a lot of really good signs, man, that he can play in the National Football League. And for whatever it's worth, Gerard Mayo, I mean, listen, they're not going to have a winning record. But there have been some games where you're like, okay, all right, New England, you guys are really in there fighting. I think they come up short in this game against the Rams, but I really feel like it's going to be a closer game to the point where it's like they may be up, but the Rams just maybe have one late game winning drive to win the game. But I'm going to go with the Rams in this one. All right, we got Cleveland Browns taking on the Saints. Jameis Winston taking on his former team, the New Orleans Saints. Listen, I don't know what got into the Saints last week, but that performance against Atlanta at home was remarkable. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I mean, like, this guy really stepped up. 3 catches for 109 yards, I believe 2 touchdowns. And that defense was lights out against Atlanta for the most part. For the majority of that game, they really kept them in check. They won that game decisively. Now, it was close, but I think if you watch that game in totality, the Saints kind of controlled that game. Now, there were some portions of it, I would say, in the second half where Falcons kind of figured some things out. But overall, Derek Carr and the connection to Scantling really outlasted the Falcons in that particular matchup. Then you got Cleveland. Jameis Winston, other than his first start against the Baltimore Ravens, hadn't looked great. I mean, he's playing like Jameis Winston, the Jameis Winston we all kind of know. Kind of fooled a couple of us here, but I'm not going to pick against the Saints. I kind of like the Saints because they're at home. I think that the energy from that arena is going to help carry them. I've been wrong in the past about certain teams and the energy of their fans, but for some reason, I feel inclined to just go with the Saints in this particular game. So therefore, I will go with the Saints. All right, we got a big AFC North matchup between the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is going to be a battle of all battles, right? Probably one of the games of the week in my estimation, outside of the Washington and Philly game, but definitely the game of the day. Maybe the Chiefs and Bills might have something to say about that, but definitely a really, really good game. Lamar Jackson on the road taking on a vaunted Pittsburgh defense with TJ Watt. Listen, Steelers both teams coming off really good wins, games in which they were trailing and they won in the end. Steelers have had the Ravens number in the past 7 or 8 games. I believe they've won 7 out of the last 8 games, or 6 out of 7, or something crazy like that. So the Steelers can beat the Ravens. Like, they know each other very well, especially Mike Tomlin. He does know this team well. I think they're going to get it going. I really think, though, the Steelers have an opportunity here to attack that secondary of Baltimore. That's a weakness. That's definitely a big weakness. I'm going to go with the Steelers here. I know Lamar and Derrick Henry have been playing outstanding football, but they don't play defense. And I think the Steelers will be able to maybe get a couple stops here or there. I think their defense is better than the Ravens. And I think Mr. Unlimited, Russell Wilson, might prove to be the difference in the end. So I'm going to go with the Steelers in a close one, close one, but I like them to win that game. All right, Minnesota taking on the Tennessee Titans. Like I talked about before, Sam Darnold, there's some cause for concern with him. Too many turnovers in the last couple games that he's had. Like, he's not playing bad overall, but the turnovers are so egregious where you're like, what's happening here? Is he forcing the ball too much? Is he trying to get the ball to Justin Jefferson as much? Which I get it, right? I mean, the guy is an unbelievable talent, but sometimes you just got to know when to hold him and when to fold him, right? And he's not doing that. He's kind of reverting back to his gunslinging days back at USC, which we don't want to see. And you got Tennessee Titans. I mean, Will Levis and Calvin Ridley are kind of really starting to step it up a little bit. Now, Will Levis came back last week against the Rams. Now they lost, against the Chargers. Lost that game, but he still threw a couple touchdowns or a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. They're at home, but I think the Minnesota Vikings defense will help bail out Sam Darnold, because I still expect Sam Darnold to turn the ball over, which I'm not hoping, but I think it's a possibility. But I like Minnesota in this matchup. I got Indianapolis Colts and the New York Jets. These are both teams that are both heading in the wrong direction. I think the Colts may have to go back to Anthony Richardson. God help us all. Joe Flacco has not really been much better since taking the starting role. In the last 2 weeks, this offense looks like shit. I'll be honest with you. Same thing with the Jets. Like, their defense, honestly, man, is the big letdown with them. Like, Aaron Rodgers, yes, he does not look the same, which we expect that, right? He's 40 years old, coming off an Achilles. How else would you expect him to play, right? He's living off of his name. But that defense, since they fired Robert Saleh, they have gone in the shitter. Like, this was once a formidable, proud defense. Now, under Jeff Ulbrich as the head coach, they suck. They literally suck. Kyler Murray did whatever he wanted to do this past Sunday, right? And he just obliterated them. So I would say the Jets should win this game at home, but if Anthony Richardson's out there, I don't know, man. This one to me is a toss-up. I'm gonna make a pick here. I'm up until this moment, I'm still deliberating on who will win this game. For the most part, I know all these games before I come on here and record this, but for this one, I'm still up in the air. So with that said, I'm still gonna probably go with the Jets in the end. They're at home. I still think they're the better team overall. They have better pieces, but don't expect the Colts to just lie down. But I think it'll be a close one. The Jets maybe win in the end, maybe on a field goal, but I'm going to take the Jets. I've got Atlanta Falcons taking on the Denver Broncos. Both teams coming off losses, but I think the Broncos just came off a really bad loss. Like, they should have won that game against the Chiefs. Like, how that field goal was blocked, to me, it's crazy, man. Like, you guys, we had them dead to rights, but the Chiefs do what Chiefs do, and they get the win out. Bo Nix is playing a lot better. Rookie Audric Estime, whatever his name is, he's starting to see a lot more touches this past week over Javonte Williams. So I don't know what's going on with that, but that's something you might want to look at. Courtland Sutton, still looking pretty good there. Got a touchdown, I believe over 100 yards receiving. Atlanta Falcons, I don't know, man. Like, every time I try to give them the benefit of the doubt, they make me look stupid. So I'm not picking them to win this game, just off the principle that although they probably should win this game, Denver's defense is going to be good. And I think Bo Nix will do just enough to win this game at home. So I'm taking Denver Broncos here. We got a big NFC West matchup here between Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers got Christian McCaffrey back. He looked really good. And his performance coming off the IR. Seattle, I don't know, man. It's they're going to throw the ball, right? They typically don't match up well with San Francisco, especially on the road. I think San Francisco they've always been historically, at least under Kyle Shanahan, a better second half of the year type of team. And I think this is when they start to find their stride now. I don't think Seahawks have a chance in this particular game. So I'm going to go with the 49ers. All right, we got a big one here with huge AFC implications. Kansas City Chiefs on the road to Buffalo. Last time they played, Kansas City ended their playoff dreams right there. I believe in the wild card or divisional round. I forgot which one it was, but they ended their run there. I believe it was a divisional round. But, listen, Buffalo Bills, we know the game plan with them. Get the ball through and to Josh Allen. Now, Amari Cooper has been added to the roster. Don't know the status of Keon Coleman. I know he was out last week. I believe it was a wrist injury. Listen, I know the Chiefs are going to lose at some point. Like, it's going to happen. It's bound to happen. But in a big primetime matchup like this, I still cannot go against them. So I'm not. I'm going to go. My head is telling me don't do it because they're due for a loss, especially the way they've been playing. But I feel like they own the Bills mentally. And I think there's something to say about the psychological warfare that they're playing with the Bills. So I'm not going to go against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm going to pick the Kansas City Chiefs in a close one. This might be the best game of the week, but I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this one. And almost rounding out the weekend, we got the Sunday Night Football, Bengals and Chargers. I believe this game was flexed, if I'm not mistaken. Not bad, right? I know the Bengals are not in playoff contention right now, and every win for them matters. Now, they need to win this one. Chargers coming off a really good win. They're about 6-3. They're trying to stay pace right there with the Chiefs. Obviously the Chiefs are undefeated, but they're trying to be one of those teams like, hey man, you guys are talking about Baltimore, you're talking about the Chiefs, you're talking about the Bills, but what about us? What about the Chargers? If they get this win, they're 7-3 under Jim Harbaugh first year, right? So the Bengals to me offensively are just a unit that you are afraid of, right? It's just defensively they can't make the plays that they needed to make. And then in that game against Baltimore, they held them early. They for 3 quarters. Honestly, if you watch that game, go back and watch the tape. They held them. It's just towards the end they couldn't get stops. I think it's a better matchup for them this time around. But I really like what the Chargers are doing. They're putting the ball back in the hands of Justin Herbert to push the ball down the field, which isn't a bad thing. And they have really good running backs too, between Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Really good, solid line. Defense is a little bit more, more relevant than, obviously at the start of the season. I really like them. I'm going to take the Chargers in a close one at home on Sunday Night Football, which is a good matchup though. And probably the worst game of the week, Monday Night Football. If this could have been flexed, they probably should have, but I get it. Houston Texans on the road. Well, they're staying within the state of Texas, but heading up the road to take on the Dallas Cowboys. Cooper Rush, I believe, is still the starting quarterback now. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. We all know the exploits of the Cowboys. There's no way Texans can't beat this team. No way. And if the Texans don't beat the Cowboys, then you know what? I'm done with the Texans. They don't deserve to be in the playoff hunt because this is a game you need to win, flat out. I'm not going to throw stats. I'm not going to throw any type of input. This is one of those games. The Cowboys suck. You guys are better. Go out and win the football game. Period. Okay. All right. So there you have it. Those are my preview and predictions for each and every game for week 11 in the National Football League. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. All right, before we get out of here, we got to talk about some fantasy football impacts in week 11 here on NFL matchups. Let's talk about some quarterbacks here that you might want to target or even put in your starting lineup if you got them. Russell Wilson definitely on top of my list here for this one. Why? He's been effective here in Pittsburgh. He's 3-0. Him and George Pickens. If you have both of those guys on your team, that's a good tandem to have, especially the passing game has been really, really good. Now, they do have a favorable matchup against the Ravens I think it's this week coming up. So definitely George Pickens might have a good time at the expense of the Baltimore Ravens. So Russell Wilson is definitely a guy that you maybe want to consider. Bo Nix. I know they came up short, but Bo Nix has steadily been consistent the last couple weeks. He had a solid outing against a Chiefs defense that's ranked, very highly. And he's got matchups against the Falcons and the Raiders. Falcons defense got torched by the Saints this past weekend. And then they got the Raiders after that, who really can't stop a nosebleed as well. So definitely a guy that you want to look at here for the next couple of weeks. Will Levis, I would have never thought I would say Will Levis. But I will say this. If you are in a pinch and you need a quarterback to start, he might be. I know for a fact he's going to be available in most of your leagues. He did show some flashes this past weekend against the LA Chargers. He threw for 2 touchdowns, I believe 174.5 yards, and I believe he had a couple yards on the ground rushing as well. But the matchup maybe ain't so great. It is against the Vikings, but definitely a guy you might want to consider as well. Now, as far as some running backs too, Jaylen Warren, this guy, I remember early on in the year, a lot of people took him as one of like a starting RB1 in your fantasy football league. He kind of fell off a little bit, but he did have a very strong performance this past weekend against the Commanders. And I believe he is expected to have a bigger role because I know Najee Harris suffered an injury, if I'm not mistaken, in that game. I don't believe he came back. So Jaylen Warren, you may see a big uptake in his production. So he might be a guy you maybe want to go out there, especially in the free agency pool, because he might be out there as well. Tyjae Spears from the Tennessee Titans, he's definitely a guy. He is somewhat, not want to say taking more reps away from Tony Pollard, but I feel like the Tennessee Titans have definitely found what he does well. And they're starting to ease him in the offense a little bit more. And his upside too is because he can catch the ball as well. So he's a guy that you're looking for if you want a running back that can do a little bit of both run and catch. He's definitely a guy worth considering. Trey Benson from the Arizona Cardinals. James Conner is the guy there. But definitely this guy, Benson, has been effective in the Arizona Cardinals running game. But one thing I do like about him, like Spears, he can catch the football as well too. But keep in mind, James Conner is the guy there. There's no doubt. There's no doubt about that. But again, if you are in a pinch, you need a running back. He's a guy you want to look for. Gus Edwards for the Baltimore Ravens, I believe. He's a power back. Not Baltimore Ravens. Excuse me. The LA Chargers is definitely a guy you want to consider as well. For sure. Can split some time there in the backfield there for the Chargers. And here's an interesting one for the Denver Broncos. Audric Estime, I believe his name is. Now he stole a lot of reps from Javonte Williams this past weekend, which surprised me because I have Javonte Williams and I'm like, what are you doing? Why aren't he playing? But he definitely got a lot of touch. I believe he rushed for over 40 something yards on 15 carries. Didn't score, but definitely you can see something brewing there. So he might be a guy you may want to steal if you're in the waiver wire pickup business there. Definitely for him. He might see some more elevated play. Not sure reasons why. Maybe let me know in the comment section why you guys think that was a thing, why Javonte Williams wasn't getting as many touches, but let me know. Wide receivers, Quentin Johnston, coming off an injury, pretty good game. He did have a touchdown this past weekend for the Chargers against the Titans. He is a very healthy matchup, especially in the red zone. He's big, he's strong, he's tall. He can go up and pinpoint those balls. And he's big. He can run those slants right across the middle into the end zone. He definitely has explosive capability. And so I feel like he's worth going out and getting if you can get him somehow, or if you have him, start him. All right. Ricky Pearsall, the rookie wide receiver out of Florida. Really good game against the Buccaneers this past weekend. I believe he caught his first NFL touchdown pass, if I'm not mistaken. Now, McCaffrey's back, right? Deebo Samuel's a little healthier. George Kittle's still there, right? Jawan Jennings is still a guy there too. But with Brandon Ayuk he's out for the rest of the year. Maybe Ricky Pearsall can kind of continue his ascension within this offense. So definitely a guy there you want to consider. And MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Wow, what a game he had this past weekend against the Atlanta Falcons at home for the Saints. With Chris Olave out, Shaheed out on the IR, you can definitely expect him to pick it up a little bit more. He's going to be probably the number one target they have. So I'm not going to say he's going to have 100 yards every time, but he's definitely going to get more targets because they don't really have anybody else that they can trust to throw the football to. So, and he's a great deep threat down the field as well too. Okay. And Mike Williams, who would have thought Mike Williams would come up on my list? Didn't work out for him in New York with the Jets. He's come to Pittsburgh where they needed another type of a big play type wide receiver because George Pickens is going to see a lot of double teams, a lot of coverage there. Mike Williams might be able to slide right in there with Mr. Unlimited at the helm there, Russell Wilson, and get some throws and get some targets worth going his way. He's definitely a guy you might want to consider as well. Tight ends are concerned. Will Dissly for the Seattle Seahawks. He's a good pickup too. I think he has a solid role within that offense. They do like to throw the ball there as well. So it's definitely, if you need a guy that's to fill for your tight end number one that's on a bye week or injured, whatever the case may be, you might want to throw him in there. Tanner Hudson for the Cincinnati Bengals also can see a lot of increase in production if T. Higgins is still out. Jamar Chase can't do it all on his own. He's trying, right? He got 3 touchdowns the other night, 276 yards. He's trying all he can, but they definitely have to throw the ball to the tight end at some point. So he might be a guy you want to consider as well. And then Josh Oliver, but this one for the Minnesota Vikings. This one, though, again, if you're in a super, super pinch and you need a target at tight end, a guy that maybe can get a couple balls thrown his way, he's definitely a guy that you might want to consider there for the Minnesota Vikings for your fantasy lineup there. And then finally, looking at some defenses and some favorable matchups, the Green Bay Packers are at the top of my list this week. They got the Bears coming in, right? Caleb Williams has not looked impressive, and he is kind of turnover prone, right? So definitely worth the pick up there. Miami Dolphins, right? They have a very strong pass rush, and the Raiders do not have great quarterback play. So any little pressure can force Gardner Minshew or even Desmond Ridder, who they just signed a couple of weeks ago from the practice squad from the Arizona Cardinals. So Miami Dolphins pass rush can definitely affect some things for their defense overall. So I like them this week. LA Rams, another team that can create pressure. They got Drake May coming in, or I believe they're going on. I forgot how it goes for them, but they are playing Drake May and the New England Patriots. And what do you do to young quarterbacks? You pressure them, and the Rams can do that, which and therefore cause some problems for him. You may get a turnover or two there. So I like them. And then the Saints. Very inspiring play last week against the Atlanta Falcons. They have a favorable matchup against Jameis Winston, their former teammate, who is turnover prone as well. Granted, he had that epiphany game against the Baltimore Ravens in his first start of the year as the Browns, but I think he maxed out there. So I think the Saints have a better chance. But I have them on the bottom of my list because they don't have Marshawn Lattimore anymore. But the matchup is a little bit favorable to them because I feel like Jameis Winston will cough that ball up a couple times there. So there you have it. Those are my fantasy football impacts for this week going into week 11. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. There you have it. That concludes this episode of NFL Matchups. I appreciate you guys stopping in. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to continue to like and comment and also subscribe if you haven't already, to subscribe to the Grid Network YouTube channel, as well as the Clutch Sports podcast page as well on YouTube and all other platforms for myself. So appreciate you guys. Until next week, like I always say, this is your boy Ryan Flowers, aka Clutch Sports Talk. Never settle till the work is done. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.